Okay, so I have a junior cameraman in training who's helping us out here. We just got done rollerblading, as we probably saw in a video that's a little bit above this on the website. And so German Shorthair Pointers, as I was telling his guardians, I consider a professional level dog. They are extraordinarily strong and have a lot of endurance. That's what makes them great hunting dogs. However, if we don't deplete that energy, that causes them to get into a lot of trouble in the house. Now, when he came inside, he was panting and pacing around a lot. So what I've done is I put him on a leash. I'm stepping on the leash just to prevent him from moving around. I want him just to relax and to stay, yeah, there we go. So I just wrapped it around my foot, and we just don't want to let him run around. Now, I think he's just gotten so used to even though the guardians have spent so much time and energy fetching and doing other games to try to help deplete his energy, none of them have really depleted to the extent that we've got here. So I'm recommending that because both of the guardians rollerblade, that they start rollerblading. I'm going to do a class. They might actually need to bring him out to a class so we teach him when to stop, when to pull, and the proper positioning. But and now that we've talked about depleting the dog's energy, I want to talk about positive reinforcement and how we can use it to benefit the dog. So one of the things during the initial consult the guardians mentioned is the dog only listens if it has a treat, and frequently just a dab. So a lot of what I noticed was everybody, anytime the dog came near them, reached over and petted the dog. So he probably got petted to such an extent that he almost considers it like his right. So what I do is when I'm working with dogs, I like to think of petting a dog as our way of paying the dog. Now when I deal with people who don't work for a living, like kids who are in school, I like to say petting our dog is our way of saying thank you. So we don't say thank you before someone gives us a candy bar, we say thank you after they give us a candy bar. So if we just pet him for no reason, while it's good for us, it's healthy, it would be better if we asked him to do something for us first and then petted him to reward him for doing those things. That's probably a better position.
You can see the Osborne.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so what I like to do is I have a treat here. I'm going to see if I can use it to motivate Osborne to go into a sit without actually giving him a sit command. So what I do is I keep my hand flat like this, slightly cupped with my fingers. So I'm going to put it here, and you can smell that I have it, and I go over his head. I am trying to keep it within an inch of his nose. If he stops tracking, I stop. A lot of people continue going way up here. So make sure you keep it there. So let him lick this a little bit so he knows what I got. See if I can get him to sit. The reason I like doing it like this is because from his perspective, it looks like I have something. If everybody gets in the habit of doing that after a while, then you just hold up your hand like this, even if you don't have one. You pantomime like you don't even have a treat, and you can get him to sit. 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 It's like I'm still too hot. Okay, so I'm not going to look very good in this particular video, but that's okay. So petting with a purpose is what I call this. So what I'm going to recommend that you guys all do, and Dad's taking notes because he's very meticulous like that, but he's going to have this video on a webpage, so he doesn't have to take any notes right now. But what I call it, what I like to do is tell everyone in the family that no one is allowed to pet the dog at all, anymore, under any circumstances. Somebody's upset. Unless the dog does something for it first. Ask the dog to sit, come, or lay down, and then we pet them immediately after they do those things. Now, we need to pet them within 3 seconds maximum. The preference is to pet them within a third of a second of them sitting down. So a lot of people think a second or 2 seconds, no big deal, but the longer that it goes, the harder it is for a dog to make the connection like we talked about earlier when we discussed how dogs learn. So what we do is we ask the dog to sit. As soon as the dog sits, I'm going to manipulate him into a sit, and then I pet him under his chin. Sit. Now, a lot of us like to say too many words to dogs. And if we want to talk to a dog, that's fine. If we have a bad day, we come home and you're like, I believe that guy's, drove slow in front of me, or whatever it was. But when we're when we're training a dog, or we're trying to assign a command word, we want to say the command word and nothing else. A lot of people say good dog. Good dog really doesn't mean much to dogs because they hear it when they sit, when they lay down, when they eat their food, when they're just doing nothing. So it means everything, so it means nothing. We also like to use adjectives and adverbs. Good sit, great sit, fast sit, dog's name and sit. The dog's key on the first sound they hear. So we want it, if he sits, we want to say the word sit and nothing else. If he lays down, does he have a command for lay down?
No.
Okay. I like to come up with fun command words because dogs can actually read our human facial expression. They're the only other animal besides human that can do that. So when I want my dog to lie down, I say crash, and she flops down on the ground. Just like like you guys did, a lot of people will laugh and smile when that happens. Well, she feels good about herself because she made people happy. So at first, when the dog nudges at you with its nose, it's telling us what to do. So instead of petting it when it does that, we're going to give it a counter order and say sit or lie down. Now once it sits, then we're going to pet it under its chin. Now when a dog is proud about what it's done, its nose is elevated, is parallel to the ground, or tilted upward. So if you pet a dog here, you can facilitate that nose up orientation. Dogs do not like being petted on top of their head. They like it behind the ear. They don't like having their ears touched. Typically the tail, although we have a dachshund here, or the legs. So now if the dog's butt is here and the head is over there and it sits down, I could scratch the dog's butt and say sit at the same time. But we prefer, a lot of dogs do, this is where they carry stress, so this is a good place to like this when they're stressed out. As soon as he gives us an order, we're going to tell him to do it. Now, the other thing you do is crash. After a while, what's going to happen is the dog's going to come sitting in front of you or laying in front of you. When he does, he's transitioning. He's now saying, well, now I'm sitting to ask for attention because that's what you've trained me to do. So shouldn't you pet me? Shouldn't you be petting me? And the answer is yes, at least whenever possible. Because otherwise, the dog's going to go back to nudging us for attention. So when you notice the dog coming up and sitting and laying at your feet, even if you didn't ask him to, we still pet him and say crash, or whatever the word is that you guys decide on. So after a while, he associates the massage and the pleasant feeling he gets with the sound of the command word the same exact time that he lays down, so he connects all these three things together.
Okay.
Now the last little part of this segment that I'll go over is I recommend coming up with a watchword. I usually recommend paycheck, but you can say anything you want, which if somebody comes in the room and you see another family member petting the dog, and the dog doesn't look like they asked the dog to do something, you say paycheck. The person who's petting the dog is like, sit, sit. Well, of course, he's not sitting, cooperating. But then we stop petting the dog and we ask it to sit again. Even if you did ask the dog to sit before the person came in the room, because if you're arguing about it, then we're not together. Dogs want to be part of a group, and if you guys are arguing about whether you asked him to sit or not, then you're not a group, really the strongest of groups. So we want to just ask him to do that, and then as soon as he does, sit again. Sitting and laying down isn't actually asking that much. Then as soon as he does, then we reward him for doing that. So it looks like he's about to SIT or LAY. I think he would have stayed LAYing, but we had the other dog saying, I smell a treat, I'm going to get some.
She can't see her hair, but she can smell
She's a beagle.
Yeah.
So that's petting with a purpose. It is the easiest thing that you can do that will have the biggest return on investment for you guys in terms of the time involved. And after a while, you won't even think about it anymore. You go like this, you put the dog into a sit, and you reach under and you pet him and you say sit, and you do this while you're having another conversation. Every time you do that, you engage in a mini dog behavior training session without even thinking about it. And if everyone in the family gets in the habit of doing that, you're going to reinforce the healthy leader-follower dynamic that you're looking for without even thinking about it for the rest of the dog's life. So that's what I like to call petting with a purpose.